Wow, I can actually talk about something positive for once. I can actually talk about some positivity with our Philadelphia sports instead of shitting on the Philadelphia Phillies every single day after every single game because that's just where they're at right now. I could talk about the team that is the most well-ran organization in the city of Philadelphia, just coming off of a Super Bowl championship. That is one, the Philadelphia Eagles, because Howie Roseman is once again doing Howie Roseman things during the great time of the year that we call in Philadelphia Howie season. And Howie season is underway. Howie Roseman is doing his things, and once again, he prioritizes youth on this roster, a young player that is going to be here for years to come, locks another very important piece up for that roster, which is Cam Jurgens, your center. Guy that was handpicked by Jason Kelsey in the draft a few years ago, and basically took over the mantle of Jason Kelsey this year after he retires. And this dude battles and battles and battles and battles throughout the entirety of the playoffs, through back injuries, through neck injuries, manages to, he doesn't even start in the NFC Championship game. Then he has to come in midway through the NFC Championship game with the injuries that he's already dealing with because Landon Dickerson had to leave with the injury during the NFC Championship game. And then he plays in the Super Bowl with said injuries and still does his thing, and that earns himself a nice 4-year extension. And I believe that 4-year extension makes him one of the highest paid centers in the National Football League, and that is another person on this offensive line that is locked up long term by Howie Roseman, and it's just such a great thing to see. And it's the one thing that Howie Roseman said, that where when you're looking at this offseason, it might be just a little bit more unorthodox than we are used to in years past. You already see with the Zach Bond extension, even though they're not going to go crazy with the spending money. He's trying to prioritize the money to where you can get some of this youth that is really important to this roster and really important to this team in the long term in terms of competing for Super Bowls year after year after year after year. We got to get those guys locked up. We got to get guys like Cam Jurgens locked up. We got to get guys like a lot of the people on our offensive line locked up. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, all those people. We got to restructure Lane Johnson's contract for the ability of time. And then you look just on the defensive side for all the other players that you got to lock up. But even, just going back to the offense actually real quickly, you restructure A.J. Brown's contract to get him extended again. You extend Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert, that's another situation. He's most likely not going to be on the Eagles roster next year, so I'm not sure when he's going to get traded. Maybe that's some type of a draft day trade. We'll just have to wait and see what Howie Roseman does there. And they eventually replace Dallas Goedert with somebody tight end wise, whether that's through the draft, whether that's just through depth on your roster in general. And eventually, if that person becomes a stud, you lock up that player long term. And then you look on the defensive side, you already got Jalen Carter that's going to be getting an extension at some point in the near future. Nolan Smith, same thing. He might be getting an extension in the near future if he is, even though there's a bunch of times where his name does pop up in trade rumors, but, probably not going to happen. He's probably going to get extended at some point. Jordan Davis, maybe he might get extended. And then you look on the secondary side when you got Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Just imagine when those guys' extensions eventually happen in the near future. So Howie Roseman, he's got a plan. He's going to let it play out. And right now, this is part of the plan. This is extending another important young piece for your future. That's getting Cam Jurgens locked up. So before we get into the rest of this, everybody, welcome back to TTP Sports. If you are new to the channel, I recommend you hitting that subscribe button. Does me a very great deal of service. You can also drop a like and leave a comment in the comment section down below. You can also use the code TTP Sports, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. You can use it for anything you can think of. It is a great deal. Don't pass it up. And you can leave a follow at TTP Sports on TikTok and Instagram for real shorts and all that good stuff. So, yeah, Howie Roseman doing Howie Roseman things, getting Cam Jurgens locked up through 2029. So basically, came out of the blue. It happened a few hours ago on the late stages of this Monday morning. And Cam Jurgens, so this is, from basically all the NFL insiders, but we look through the Eagles side, and Zach Berman, I think, was one of the first ones to really go through the contract details with Cam Jurgens' extension. So Jurgens, 25, he will sign a deal with 4 years, $68 million, with $39.4 million guaranteed. The new money will make him the second highest paid center in the NFL. Strong deal, and another example of the Eagles acting quickly. By signing an extension early, they're able to add the money to the final year of his rookie contract. So it's good stuff. That is good stuff. And then Zach Berman also tweeted eventually a few minutes later, just talking about all the contract extensions that you had and all the locked up guys that you have on your offensive line. So Eagles offensive line now has 4 key starters locked up long-term in deals that make them anywhere from the highest paid player to the 6th highest paid player at their respective positions. So you have Jordan Mailata, your left tackle, signed through 2028 at $22 million per year. Your left guard, Landon Dickerson, signed through 2028 at $21 million a year. Then you have your center, Cam Jurgens, signed through 2029 at $17 million a year. And you have Lane Johnson signed through 2027 at $25 million per season. You have your entire offensive line locked up, basically. It's really just your right guard position that isn't locked up, and you're probably still trying to figure out a way to who really takes over that role, whether it might be a Tyler Steen in the future, whether you're trying to figure out through this draft once again, or you just bring in somebody that can just slot in there, because Mekhi Becton, he leaves in free agency, you don't bring him back. So it's basically an open season for that right guard position, so you really don't know who's going to really take that position and run away with it. Whether, like I said, it is somebody like a Tyler Steen, whether it's somebody else in the depth pool of the Eagles offensive line, rookies and young players that they just have in the pool, or whether they go through the draft once again. They find a right guard that they do like, whether it's early in the draft, whether it's late in the draft, and they find a way to fill that position. So it definitely is very interesting, and it's a very good sign. And, Howie Roseman just likes to do this. Howie Roseman wants to make sure that his young talent that is going to be a priority for this team for the foreseeable future, they got locked up. That's what Howie does. It's what Howie Roseman has been doing. He locks up the most important pieces, the most important cogs to the entire machine to keep this thing running for years and years and years to come. If you're a player that is dominant, that is dynamic, that is a important piece to this Philadelphia Eagles future, you are going to get a contract extension. You are going to be a part of this team's future for a very long time to come. That's why you see so many guys on the offensive side that are very important. Where when you see Saquon Barkley get another contract extension on top of the contract that he already has, when you see A.J. Brown get another contract, when you see Devontae Smith get his extension, when you see some guys on the defense eventually get their extensions, you see Zach Bond come back, from basically a prove-it deal to one of the highest paid linebackers in the entire NFL. Howie Roseman is going to make sure that when you are an important person in this Eagles locker room, you are going to get compensated, you are going to get paid, and he's going to do some manipulating with the money to make it look like it's not as much money on the cap as you think it is. That's what Howie Roseman likes to do. So you're going to get your money, and it's going to benefit the Eagles in the long term because you get them signed up early to where maybe in a couple of years, maybe Cam Jurgens would have made more money. Maybe if you get Jalen Carter locked up early, he would have made more money a couple of years down the line instead of what you're paying him right now, so on and so forth. Eventually, when you extend a Quinyon Mitchell, also when you extend a Cooper DeJean, couldn't get that out. For some reason, that was a big tongue twister for me. That's basically the gigantic cycle right here. You get these guys locked up and extended early before they really start making their big payday, really before their value goes up even higher and higher and higher, and it really benefits your salary situation to where you can bring in other guys through free agency. You can make trades. You can constantly flush in depth through the draft through more rookie deals to where if those guys turns out to be studs, you can extend those guys up long term before their rookie deals end, and you can constantly flush in and flush out talent because you have your nucleus locked up, you have your nucleus signed, and they're getting paid, and you can constantly just surround it with more and more and more and more and more talent And that's going to keep you competitive and competing for Super Bowls for a very long time. You got your quarterback, you got your offensive line locked up, you got your two wide receivers, you got your running back. Really, the only thing you have to look at is basically your tight end for the offensive perspective. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen with Cam Jurgens. Most likely he's getting traded. I don't see him being in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform next year, so we'll look to see how they replace that specific position, whether it's through the draft, whether it's through a trade, whether it's through a free agency signing. We have no idea. So that's really the only thing that most likely you have to look for on the offensive side. Defensively, yeah, Jalen Carter, he's eventually going to get his extension, whether that's at some point this offseason, whether that at some point during the upcoming season, whether it's through next offseason, it's eventually going to happen. Same thing with Nolan Smith. Jordan Davis probably will get an extension at some point. Quinyon Mitchell will get an extension at some point. Cooper DeJean will get an extension at some point. It's going to happen. You're going to lock these guys up. It's going to happen. And then you're just going to flush in that talent around those guys, and maybe eventually in the near future, those guys get their extensions before their rookie deals run out. So Howie Roseman just stays ahead of the game constantly so you can keep this team competitive for the very long term. It's good stuff. It's good stuff, and it's just Howie Roseman doing Howie Roseman things. It's a great thing. It's great stuff, guys. Great stuff. Like I said, it's the one thing very positively that we could just talk about with the city of Philadelphia, with the Eagles, because it just feels like we shit on so many of the other teams right now in the more recent history, with the Phillies, with the Flyers, with the Sixers, and Jesus Christ, it just those three teams in general. And the Eagles are just a lone bright spot because it just feels like they're the ones that have it figured out. And it's also just because they're coming off of a Super Bowl. And yeah, also, yes, we were shitting on the Eagles after the 2023 season and in the beginning of the 2024 season because we really didn't have that. We had the expectation, but we didn't have the belief. We didn't have the trust just because of how badly 2023 ended. But something changed within that locker room. Something changed within that organization during the bye week. And they became one of the best teams in the National Football League. And that's what drove them to winning Super Bowl 59. Great stuff. It's what great teams do. What great organizations do. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles are. And they're just going to keep being up there at the top of the NFL, at the top of the NFC. They're going to be a team that's favored for Super Bowls for years and years and years and years and years and years to come. You've already been to 2 Super Bowls in 3 seasons, basically, with a lot of these guys. Why say they can't make more? Why say that they can't win more? They're going to. This team is young enough. This team is talented enough for years and 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 years to come. Man, oh man, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Now with the NFL draft, it really feels like it's just come up very quickly. The draft is this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And in terms of thinking about the NFL draft, I really haven't done my research into it just because it's not my prime expertise of college football and football prospects. Even really, the only thing I can really look into is what the Philadelphia Eagles' needs are, and if when they select during the draft, I'm not even sure if they're going to be doing anything with pick 32 that they have, whether they trade up, whether they trade back into the second round and get more draft capital, because Howie Roseman likes to acquire more draft capital. That's just what Howie Roseman also loves to do when it comes to the NFL draft. If the general consensus says whoever the Eagles pick is a great pick in that position, is a reach in that position, that's basically where you got to go through. And really the only thing that I can tell you from just what I know is basically what the Eagles need. You need to find ways on the edge rushers to replace a Josh Sweat, to replace a Brandon Graham, and maybe you do already have those in position, but it always doesn't hurt to add extra depth in that position. Same thing with interior defensive line, same thing with offensive line help. It never, the Eagles love to build within the trenches. They always love to add those extra guys to Stoutland University so they can plug and play guys just in case some guys get hurt, just in case you need to throw in guys for a little bit of a series in there. You can have those guys prepared. You can have those guys on the side fields and everything there. Wouldn't hurt to draft offensive line. Wouldn't hurt to give more defensive line help. Doesn't hurt to get more secondary help. You could basically just look at anywhere else, and that's where Howie Roseman will go to. I don't think he's going to look at one particular position. He's probably going to look at multiple ones. And realistically, when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles and what Howie Roseman might be trying to do, it really doesn't think, in my personal opinion, that he tries to draft for needs this season. He tries to draft for needs down the road, because maybe you do have some defensive line help in your depth already from previous drafts and young guys that are ready to take the next step. Maybe you need some help for the following season and the season after that, so we can have the depth for years down the line, and you have these young guys that are already in the wings that are maybe ready to become rotational pieces, that are maybe ready to take the next step and maybe become a starter for another guy that you're not looking to extend, and those guys walk out the door, and then a young guy can come in and take that spot if they are ready and ready to prove themselves, and maybe it works out into your benefit. So I'm not really sure what direction Howie Roseman could go in this draft, but I'm very confident that he's going to find his talent in specific places. Realistically, if I think something that he would probably prioritize, it's probably going to be more on the defensive side, bolstering your defensive line, bolstering your edge rushers, because I think that's just where they're going to go. Defensive line, offensive line. I just see those two specific places where they're really going to attack. Maybe they go a safety route later in the draft. Maybe they go tight end later in the draft. It's just really where you think they're going to go. And no one can really gauge what Howie Roseman is going to do, because Howie Roseman is a magician for a reason. So you're just going to have to wait and see what happens for draft day. It's not my realm of expertise, looking at different prospects, looking at college football prospects, what positions feel the Eagles need best. All I can tell you is most likely what I think their needs are, and if the general consensus says whoever they select in the draft is a good pick, bad pick, whatever, that's when I'll criticize it, rightfully so, or, praise it, rightfully so. That's just what we have to wait and see for the draft this upcoming weekend. It should be a very exciting time. It definitely should be. Really, the only part of my prospects that I could really say in terms of like drafting and prospects that I can even really say when it comes to the NHL draft, that's really where my more knowledge comes from, because obviously I'm a hockey nerd. But yeah, if general consensus says it's a good pick for Howie, I'll praise it. If it's a bad pick for Howie, or if the reach for Howie, I'll criticize it, and we'll maybe give him the benefit of the doubt. But we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. But just good stuff overall again by Howie Roseman. Extended youth. That's what Howie Roseman does. He's going to prioritize the young players that are going to be on this team for a very long time. And like I said, in the near future, you'll eventually see a Jalen Carter extension. You'll eventually see a Quinyon and a Cooper DeJean extension. It's going to be a very interesting time when those things happen, and I'm sure a lot of Eagles fans will jump up and down for joy for that. We'll all jump up and down for joy for that, because it's good stuff. It's good stuff, and Howie Roseman continues to prioritize the right things. That's what makes the Eagles, and what is going to make the Eagles so competitive for years and years and years down the line. So it's good stuff. Good stuff overall. So I think overall, that's probably going to do it for this edition. We don't have any calls here. We don't really have much in terms of hotline calls or anything. Just wanted to get this thing out there because it was a good signing for the Philadelphia Eagles, and also because we do have the draft this weekend. We can also, talk about that when it does happen. So might as well find a way to get this out of here, and also just have something to talk about positively, because I can already tell you with the Philly series with the Mets this weekend, with the Cubs this weekend, it's definitely not gonna be a fun time. I can already guarantee you that. So. We'll get to there when we do get to there. The Phillies do play tonight, so that game's going to be very fucking stressful. I can already tell you. I can already tell you. I probably shouldn't even stress about the Phillies because I already know who they are, but that's just the way I roll. Man. Man, oh man, oh man, our Philadelphia sports teams. Thank God the Eagles know what the fuck they're doing. Thank God they do. So, that'll do it for today, everybody. Appreciate you all for tuning in as always. I want to hear your thoughts on this Cam Jurgens extension. I also want to hear your thoughts on what possibly the Eagles can do with the draft this weekend. So don't forget to leave those in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like on the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Always does me a great deal of service. You can also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. Great deal, don't pass it up. And you can also leave a follow at TTP Sports on TikTok and Instagram for all the other good stuff. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.